Well, hey, Life Church, we are here with our fearless leaders, Pastor Bobby and Jennifer, and we have, this is a cool season at our church because you mentioned a couple weeks ago, this month, June, marks 15 years in ministry here at Life Church for you guys.
Absolutely.
And first of all, thank you all for your leadership and what you mean. I mean, I know I can speak for the staff members when I say you guys have changed so many lives, including ours, and we want to thank you and honor you just for allowing God to work through you like He has. And so thank y'all. But we want to just get together for a conversation today because I wanted the church to be able to hear. We want the church to be able to hear your heart, and I think we take for granted a lot of times that people know the story of Life Church, how it began, what was God speaking to you guys at the very, very beginning. And how it all got started. So take us back to the very beginning. What happened? How did this whole thing get rolling?
Well, I was born in 1967 to Cookville Regional Hospital. No, we were doing college ministry. Jennifer and I had been in the college ministry for 10 years. And things were going great. College ministry was going great. The staff that I worked with, there was no like, I can't stand these people. I don't like these students. But it began to be inside of me of change.
Yeah.
And sometimes when you're following God, and the Holy Spirit leads you, sometimes you begin to lose your peace.
Yeah.
Not your sense of being saved or connected to Jesus, but it's like this doesn't feel right anymore.
Yeah.
In the scriptures, you'll see sometimes the apostles would say, "It seems good to me in the Holy Ghost."
That's right. Yeah.
And so I just started getting a little bit more restless.
Yeah.
And then she wasn't there at that time because we was kind of comfortable.
Right.
Making pretty decent money, had a great staff at the college ministry and part of a great church. And then later on, she began to feel it.
Yeah.
And so we actually thought that we would be leaving Cookville.
Right.
We were both born and raised here, and
did an interview.
Yeah, did an interview down in close to Alabama border.
Yeah.
And great church, nice staff, but that just it wasn't a God thing.
Right.
And so we came back, and I'll never forget. It's either Pastor Eddie Turner called me or I called him, and I was in that valley of decision. I kind of got miserable, made her miserable. And I remember I actually started looking online, like on the internet. Instead of farmers.com, I was looking for church.com. And so Pastor Eddie, we got on the phone, and he said, "What are you doing?" And I said, "Well, I'll tell you what I've been doing today. I've been looking." He said, "Man, that is not the way you find the will of God." Mm. He said, the will of God will always find you.
Wow.
You keep doing what you're doing. And I remember I got off the phone. I got on my hands and knees there at the college ministry in my office, and I repented to the Lord. I said, "Forgive me. Mm. You know where I'm at. When you're ready, you come get me. And I'm just going to continue to do what you're calling me to do." And 2 weeks later, First Assembly called me.
Wow.
And we went over, met with the deacons, preached for them, and it wasn't but a few months we were pastoring First Assembly in Cookville, Tennessee.
Wow. So take us back to Cookville First Assembly on Woodland Avenue. Talk about the building. Talk about getting started. And I know you shared a lot of these stories from the pulpit over time, but there was uncertainty there. The uncertainty and the having to trust God was still there all the time, and He came through every time. So talk about those early years at Woodland.
Yeah. To be honest, sometimes the Bible says we walk by faith and not by sight. Mm-hmm. It really wasn't and listen, let me say this first of all. There were some good people there that loved Jesus.
Absolutely.
But they'd become discouraged.
Sure.
The people were discouraged. The church wasn't growing, and just some unsettledness in the people. Right. We could feel that when we first went. But they loved God, and they wanted to see God move. So that I can't brag on and thank God for that group of people when we first went there.
Yeah.
And many of them are still here.
Yeah.
But honestly, it wasn't what I had in mind.
Yeah.
We'd built a very successful, large college ministry.
Yeah.
Been faithful.
Yeah.
So we're going to go to, pretty decent sized church, great salary, and that wasn't what God wanted.
Yeah.
He wanted us to go and love on those people,
Yeah.
and just preach His word. But now looking back, I'm so glad we did that, because we have seen the faithfulness of God.
Yeah.
He is so faithful.
Yeah.
When you experience what we've still been experiencing here,
Yeah.
that song "Amazing Grace," the amazing just really stands out, because I know who I am.
Yeah.
You know, I know who I am, and without Jesus, I ain't nothing. I'm a drug addict, and so I'm still overwhelmed and amazed that God's allowed us to serve Him in this capacity.
Yeah.
It still overwhelms me, and I don't ever want to lose that, because I think once you lose that, if it don't overwhelm you, if you're not going, wow,
It's so much bigger
Look,
than we are.
absolutely.
Yeah.
And I think if it ever gets to where,
If you lose the awe of it.
then you've probably already gotten into pride.
Yeah. Yeah.
Well, it was then, honestly, and it still is. It was
What's
bigger
that?
than us.
Absolutely.
When we first came, and now it is.
Absolutely.
It still is. So.
Yeah.
Absolutely. So, but I want to say something else. You know, you started this off by saying, you know, that you're thankful for Jennifer and I, and that you honored us, and I do. That means a lot to me, and the people at Life Church tell us that, and we get emails. But I want you to know, number one, it's a God thing. I mean, pastors will call me and say, "What did you do?" And I'm like, I don't know. All I know is I really tried to make this as much about Jesus as I possibly can, where it's not got my greasy fingers all over it. Pastor Donnie Davison, who came over from the Church of Christ, was saying in our staff meeting this morning, it amazed him that this was a God thing, because here you got me, a Southern Baptist boy who got around the Pentecostal church, and then you had a Methodist and a Church of Christ,
Right.
And
Church
he
of
said,
God,
and he said, but we all came, and he said, I think the reason this thing has gone so well is, Pastor Bob, when I first came here, you said, I want to always make this about Jesus, one name above every name, and I think really that's, God blesses that.
Yeah. One phrase that you teach us, and something that we really value as part of our culture here at Life Church, is what you say all the time: purpose over preference. It's not about what we want, it's about what God wants. What has God called us to do?
Absolutely.
And that's something you keep on the forefront of our minds all the time. And I know that that has taught us a tremendous amount. And you did that. You guys did that early on when Life Church was launching. So talk about, I think one of the reasons God has blessed our church so much, you've said this before, is because of the way that we gave at the beginning at Woodland, when really didn't have a lot.
Absolutely.
And I remember a specific story you shared before about there was a time when money was extremely tight and things were extremely difficult, but God called you
Absolutely.
to give as a church. Talk about that story.
Well, you know, growing up in church, my dad was a pastor. You know, we'd have a 2-minute window there in service of it's tithe time.
Mm-hmm.
And so they'd passed up. And it was almost apologetically.
Yeah, yeah.
You know, we don't want to talk about this too
Right.
much. And I do believe preachers can talk about it too much.
Sure.
And we can get too money focused.
Yeah.
But as I began to be taught the word by some great pastors, I began to realize giving is a huge part of God's DNA. I mean,
Right.
for God to love the world, He gave.
Yeah.
And there's all through the scriptures, from Genesis to Revelation, of the sowing and reaping.
Yeah.
It's a law God established.
Absolutely.
And so I think true giving, what God taught me when we first came over here, and we did this when we was in Bible school. Man, we tithed in Bible school when we were like, are we going to be able to eat this week?
Yeah, yeah.
But we knew that was God's money, and He always took care of us.
Yeah.
Always. Let me go back to that. When He first showed me His faithfulness, it's when we would give, when we were both going to Bible school and eating Hot Pockets.
Yeah.
I don't eat Hot Pockets to this
Hamburger
day.
You're working at a gas
Yeah.
station, right? I mean,
Yeah.
But because we followed that principle of give, because when you give, when you truly give, you feel it.
yeah, yeah,
But God looks at that, and when you do it, He's like, I can trust this person.
yeah, yeah.
And so we were actually able to help someone pay their tuition. That was a really good man, but he wasn't going to be able to make it.
Right.
And we discussed it, because we always do that, and said, would you like to help this guy? And so he didn't have to drop out of school because of that. But I look back later,
Right.
I didn't know this till last year when her and I were talking, and we brought up that couple because we
Right.
loved them. We'd go over to their house to eat. They'd come over to our house, and they didn't tithe. They didn't tithe.
Yeah.
I didn't know that. I might not give it to him. But I'm just kidding.
But it's good that we don't know that stuff, right?
But no, I mean, it was. But I think they started tithing later.
Yeah.
I think that provoked them.
Yeah, and they
to
saw
start
God's
tithing.
faithfulness. Yeah.
So that principle came with me to this church. I didn't really realize how bad a financial shape the church was in, honestly.
Right. Again, one of those things. If you known, you might not have said
Right.
yes.
Probably not. Seriously, I really didn't. I didn't think to talk about that in the board in
Sure.
the deacon meeting
Yeah.
when I.
Yeah.
So I didn't ask them. What? Are you, that's dumb. Now I look back at it. What y'all bring in?
But it's good sometimes that we don't know what we're
True.
getting into,
True.
so that we
Yes.
just trust God with it.
Yes. So we were living week to week.
Yeah.
I mean, the church, when I came here, had a booth at the Putnam County Fair
Yeah.
to sell hamburgers, and her and I went over and worked it.
Never carry us.
And that booth carried the church from having to close the doors.
Wow.
I didn't know that.
Wow.
And so when I said, "We sure we want to do this year?" and one of my deacons, Kermit, said, "If we don't, we won't make it." And I'm like, "Well, we're going to go flip burgers."
Yeah, that's right. Yeah.
That's what we did. for a
And that's
couple-
what we
few
did
years.
for a few years.
Yeah.
So, but what we did is I realized, and I told the deacons in one of our meetings, I'd been here about 3 months, and it was not looking good. And I told the deacons, I said, we're going to have to give our way out of this.
Yeah.
And I remember one guy was a corporate guy at the time, and he's still in this church and still is also very active in this
Yeah.
church. But I remember him looking at me and he goes, "What do you mean by that?" And I said, "Dude, we don't have enough to pay it anyway,
Yeah.
so let's just give it."
Yeah.
And we started we helped Trinity Baptist Church over on Highway 70.
Yeah.
I'd heard that they needed some mustard jackets, so we sent them a check. We helped the church launch in Rickman
Yeah.
and sent them the money for their deposit on the building there. And I'm telling you, man, you can trace it back to that.
Wow.
It just started, if you give, you shall receive. And I think sometimes we wait. Well, when I've got more than enough that I'll give, that's not really faith.
Right.
That's
That's
not
right.
faith.
You don't feel it.
And so we've carried that principle on to this day. We
Yeah.
help churches all the time. We help because I believe if God can get it through you, He will get it to you.
That's right. Absolutely. It's kingdom principle.
Absolutely.
And so with that, I mean, you see God's faithfulness. His word says that, when you give, it will be given. So let's talk about the amazing things God has done through Life Church growth-wise after that. Let's talk about getting into the new facility. Take us through that journey. How did we wind up here, where we are at the Cookville North facility now?
So we started growing at Woodland, and we'd basically maximized everything we could there. We took out the grass, had to worry about the city coming over because we turned all the grass
Almost
in
every
the
Sunday
parking
they
lot.
came. Yeah.
The police would show up on Sunday morning
Yeah.
because we're,
Having to direct traffic and
well, they're just parking all over the road.
yeah.
And because it was an acre and a quarter of property, and we had 500 people coming.
Oh my goodness.
And so I remember telling the deacons, I said, "Listen, I finally got a good relationship with the police officers in this community.
Yeah.
I don't want to hurt that anymore." And so, but we realized we had to go somewhere.
Yeah.
And so that's when we really felt like the Lord began to lead us to this area and to the high school.
Yeah.
And so we talked about it as a deacon board and went to the church and told them, "Hey, we're the church. This property is not the church.
Right.
You're the holy ground of God. No more buildings."
Yeah. Yeah.
And so everybody agreed we needed to go over here. Out of 500 people, we didn't have one no vote.
Wow.
And we bought this building we're currently sitting in, which was a picture frame factory.
Right.
And the first building we bought was the one that's the edge, was the Hilltop Bar.
That's right. Yeah.
It's called the Hilltop Tavern. That was our first remodel. Because we
Right.
sent our youth over here
Yeah.
before we moved over
I
here.
remember that. That's right. Yeah.
And so we bought that, and then we bought this property, remodeled it, kept growing. We moved over here in January of 2007. Then we finally bought JD's Sandwich Shop, which was
Right.
another bar.
Right.
And he was a good neighbor. He loved us. We loved him. But it came to the point to where we really needed that property
Right.
too. So we bought it. And so when we moved over here in 2007 of January, we were running about 500 people. And then in just about a year or two, we started running between 800 and 1,000 people in attendance. And then when we got about 1,200 people, that's when I really began to feel God saying there's a change coming again.
Right.
And then I began to realize He was wanting us to become non-denominational.
Yeah.
And change the name of the church. And that sounded at first like, we're growing, why would I do that?
Yeah.
And I felt like the Lord was saying, because there's a lot of people out there that want to know what God's doing here, because they knew it was a God thing. They know Bobby from Bangham. This is bigger than him. But the label is limiting you.
Yeah.
Especially this generation, don't care about denominationalism. They want to know, can Jesus get my kid off drugs?
Absolutely.
Can Jesus save my marriage?
Mm-hmm.
And so he was saying the label's in your way. Now, I'm not anti-denominational.
Sure.
I've got great friends that are Baptist, Presbyterian, Methodist, Church of Christ. So, but for us, it wasn't about much as getting away from, but going to something.
Sure.
And so we pulled out of the Assemblies of God, changed the name to Life Church, and in 6 months, we saw 800 more people come.
Unbelievable.
And so you knew then that was a God thing.
Yeah.
And some people say, well, you're throwing out a lot of numbers. Mm-hmm. And there's a statement that we make around here, and I want it to be known. We count people because people count.
That's right.
I mean, for people who says, well, it's not about numbers. Well, somebody had to count to 3,000 on the day of Pentecost.
Right, yeah.
Somebody had to count the 120 that's in the upper room.
Absolutely.
And plus, there's a whole book in the Bible called Numbers. So
God might care about
yeah,
it.
it's just, you don't serve numbers.
Sure.
But it is a way to measure, are we reaching more families?
Yeah.
But, and then, so we were running around we were hanging around the 2,700 mark for a while. And that's when we felt like instead of going back here and building this massive sanctuary for $50 million, that'll seat 3,000 people or whatever it would cost. That's when we started going, let's take Life Church to other communities.
Right.
So we launched Sparta.
And that was about 2 years ago from right now, from 2019. And so Sparta's launched and is doing so well. Cool. And that was only the beginning. So God birthed something in your heart then to say, we're not going to pour money in buildings. We're going to pour money in people.
Absolutely.
We're going to pour money in communities.
Absolutely.
And we're going to launch campuses.
Absolutely.
So Sparta launched. Salina launched. And then talk about the next two exciting things coming up.
So then we purchased the property in Livingston. And the
Right.
thing is, we do have buildings, but all the buildings that we've purchased, 2 bars, a picture frame factory,
Yeah.
a dollar store, and a medical supply
Right.
company that used to be a car lot.
Yeah.
And the thing is we've tried to not. I mean, we want the buildings to be the buildings to be inviting, but we don't want it to be about buildings
Yeah.
and the stained glass and churches that have that's wonderful.
Sure.
But we had to have a place to meet.
Right.
But we've tried to do it very budget focused
Yeah.
and good stewards.
Absolutely.
And you know what? We've realized that people are not impressed with the buildings as much as they are what's Jesus doing there.
Right.
And so, but yes, Sparta's just done awesome, and the people in Sparta are awesome.
It's incredible to see
They
the
are
people of the community come
awesome
together.
people. I love it when I get to go down there
Yeah.
and hang out with them. So we purchased Livingston first,
Right.
and they're working hard remodeling that thing to get us in there as soon as possible.
Yes.
But then what we've realized is
Catch that.
I caught it.
Goodness gracious. All right. Well, that's good.
Okay. But then I realized that that's not going to help us with the growth that's coming to Cookville.
Right.
Even in the summer, we are full
Yeah.
here. And,
Absolutely.
And we've got Saturday night and now 3 Sunday morning services. And there's just nowhere else kind of to do a service.
Right.
And so we're thinking, we know that there'll be some people that attend this campus that will go to Livingston, but that may not alleviate especially the growth that we feel like the families that are coming into Cookeville in the next 5 to
Absolutely.
10 years.
Absolutely.
And we want, listen, there's great churches in this community, and they will go to some of those churches, but we believe also God's called us to this community.
Absolutely.
And so what do we do? And that's when we felt like the Lord put it on our heart. I met with the deacons. It seemed good to them in the spirit. And I said, let's go South Cookeville.
Yeah.
And with trying to remodel Livingston and finish some of the things we've done here, we just didn't feel like that it was time to buy property
Right.
or build a building. So we looked at, hey man, let's go to the movie theater.
Yeah.
You can still do live worship. You can
Yeah.
still do all the children's ministry. And our other campuses are video. You're not going to get a better video than the movie theater.
That's right. Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Absolutely.
And it's the most comfortable seats in town,
Yeah.
by the way.
Hot daddy and high definition.
Hot daddy and high definition. But we're excited now. We've contracted with a company who does this nationwide. What's crazy is, again, this generation, and when I say this generation, even my age, are not really committed to or interested in the way we used to do it.
Right.
They're more interested in what's God wanting to do
Yeah.
in me, in us, in my neighborhood, in our community. It's not about the place or the
Right.
or the steeple or and so being able, two of the fastest growing, largest churches in America right now don't have a building at all.
Wow. Yeah.
There's one that I think they are now approaching 20,000 people in attendance, and every one of their campuses are in high schools.
Wow.
So we got to think outside the box.
Absolutely.
And so we're excited about the movie theater. It'll be opening in August. That'll be our launch date. And then Livingston, and just as soon as we can get in there.
Absolutely. Right. And so both of those things, we're talking 2020, 2 more campuses will be ready to roll, up
Yes.
and running. That is so exciting. What do you guys see? What would you challenge us as a church for the next 2, 3, 4, 5 years? Where do you see us needing to focus, and how can we partner with where we're going?
You know, you want to say I've been doing all the talking.
That's
but
fine. You've done great. But I mean, to answer your question, I think for all of us, including the leadership here, I mean, I see God doing a great thing in the leadership here. Our staff is, I mean, just we're all in a great place together, you know, and I love seeing thinking outside the box. I have a hard time doing that sometimes, but I've been able to see outside the box a little bit and what God has done. And so going forward, I see that we are moving forward, and I think just challenging the people, first of all, to always just remember where we came from. Mm-hmm. You know, I think that's important to remember where we came from, who brought us here, who's kept us here, and who's going to keep us and going forward, and that this is His church and they're His people. And just to always present this before God, you know, and just asking Him to use us. You know, where do you want us? Not necessarily where we always want to be,
Right.
or what we think it should look like, but what does He want?
Yeah.
Because He's got the bigger picture. And so,
Yeah, I would just say, you know, you said what would we challenge you with in the next 2 to 5 years? Stay who we are.
Yeah.
It's what got us here.
Sure.
And what I mean by that is, I go back to you saying at the very beginning, thank you to me and Jennifer for all we've done. This has been a team effort.
Yeah.
I mean, from the first volunteers when we came to this church, it was just, we want to do something for Jesus.
Yeah.
And so Jesus did team ministry. First thing He did is went and got 12 scoundrels. And I don't want to do this by
Thank
myself.
goodness.
Absolutely.
Thank
That's why
goodness
we
for
fit
me.
in. But the thing is people reach people.
Yeah.
And so I just want to keep interjecting this. Number one, I'm thankful to Jesus for His amazing grace and mercy. But to the people of Life Church, they are the church, and they are the reason. They are the reason that we have been able to do what we've been able to do, because they've allowed Jesus. You know, Paul said, that which I've received from the Lord, deliver I unto thee. You know what Paul's saying there? I'm not going to keep to myself what Jesus has done for me. And so I think our people are good at that, man. I think they're good at saying, oh, you're screwed up? You ought to come to my church.
Yeah.
You don't know how messed up I was 2 years ago.
Join the club, man.
Yeah. And we're all healing together.
Yeah.
well, the
And
word
so-
I get too is the word restoration.
Yep.
I mean, there's been a lot of restoration that has been shown here, I believe.
Yeah. Absolutely.
So,
Yeah, what do we say all the time? This church is a hospital.
That's right.
It's a hospital. And I think sometimes the church forgets that.
Yeah.
Because you can get saved, you've been saved for 5 years, and you don't know how it feels to be sick in sin because you've gotten a little better. Yeah. But if you turn the mirror around, there's still some stuff we need to work on. You know what I'm saying?
That's exactly right.
Always something.
Always something. So my thing is, if we'll just stay a hospital and tell people Jesus can heal you.
That's right.
Whatever you got that's messing you up, just be the hospital. Yeah. Just, I remember, and I said this in a message one time. If we as the church, and I talk about me too, if we as the church will see ourselves as EMTs, we're the paramedics. What do? We don't try to heal them. We just try to get the bleeding stopped. Yeah. We try to get them, but if we can just touch them and bring them to Jesus, He'll heal them.
Yeah.
Sometimes I feel like that we think we're the physicians.
Yeah.
Now, if you'll just do this and this and this and this and this, and they're sitting there thinking, do you know how screwed up you are? So I think what I would challenge us to do, Zach, is be who we've been. Yeah. We love Jesus, and we love people, and just get hurting people to Him. That's right. And I think what's helped us when pastors come in to meet with me and they say, well, I know you're saying it's a Jesus thing, but what do you think has helped it grow? I think it's this. We've created a culture here that everybody, we're all on the same plane. Yeah. We're all the same. There's no big me's, little I's. Yeah. We all need Jesus. Yeah. From the guttermost to the uttermost, and I've been in both places. And if we'll stay that and stay in awe of Him, God resists the proud, He gives grace to the humble. One of the other things that I try to remind myself and you guys as staff of is this. We never, ever, the quickest way to lose the favor of God off His church is if we ever think this. We are never the church in town, ever. We are a church that makes up the church.
That's right.
It's the quickest way to lose the favor of God. And so I would just say I challenge us to stay the way we are, keep putting purpose over preference.
Right. Well, PB, again, we love you guys, and we are so thankful. I speak for everyone when I say we're excited about what God is going to do over the next few years here at Life Church.